What was your "this person is on another level" of stupid moment? I once worked in a Midwestern grocery store deli, and I was trying to explain to a woman that the name brand and generic brand of the macaroni salad that we carried were in fact identical. The woman yelled at me saying she could only have the generic brand because one is made with mayo and the other is made with mayonnaise, and I don't like mayo. When I tried to explain that mayo is an abbreviation of mayonnaise, she just said, "I'm from the South, I know my food," and tutted away. This story is in good faith. I was asking my friend, Jay, when he learned about 9/11s. He started telling me this specific story of how he walked outside and saw smoke everywhere, and how he asked his mom about it. He claimed she said planes hit the towers. I stared at him, just silently taking in the story. We live in the Midwest. There was no way he saw that debris from the towers. Also, we were born in 2003. I used to work with a girl who was sweet but so dumb. We were in a meeting once and somehow someone mentioned baked ham. My manager said, "Ugh, I hate ham. It looks like human flesh." The girl I mentioned was sitting next to me and looked horrified and whispered, "Does ham really come from people?" My boss asked me to file the spam mail. This man was one of those people who think they are the smartest person in the room. So spam folder okay, weird but okay. I couldn't find any spam mail that wasn't already in the spam folder. Afternoon comes and he stomps over to my desk area and wants to know why the spam isn't in the spam folder, as he throws a manila folder on my desk. The folder was labeled spam. He prints spam mail out and files it. And with any sign of skepticism on my face. He'd insist the IT guy told him that's where spam goes, so he got himself a folder, and that was it. I had to get the fuck out. I got a concussion a while back. A friend of mine told me not to come close because it might be contagious. They weren't kidding. Rescued a coworker on the side of the road with a flat tire, waiting for the tow truck. I pointed out the nail at the top of their tire. They scoffed and looked at me like I was the stupidest person in the world and exclaimed, "That's not true, BC, it's flat at the bottom." I just walked away and never brought it up again. I worked at a pet store in college. This customer asked me which food would make his pit bull swole. I suggested a high-protein food with a good amount of exercise, but advised that a lot of it was determined by the dog's genetics. He asked me if we sold genetics. I was friends with a couple who only had enough money to pay either the cable bill or the electricity. They paid the cable. A couple days later the power was turned off. Me, when I was a kid. I had a real old transistor radio, asked my parents for a newer radio so I could receive and listen to newer music. I locked my purse with my keys and cell phone in my apartment. I went to the office to ask maintenance to let me in. The woman at the desk said she would call maintenance and asked for a phone number they could reach me at. I said there wasn't one because my cell phone was locked in my apartment. She insisted she needed a number. I said I could give her the number, but that I wouldn't be able to answer if they called. She suggested I get my phone out of my apartment so that I could answer when they called. I rolled my eyes at her and said if I could get in my apartment to get my cell phone, I wouldn't need maintenance to let me in. She never did understand me. But maintenance did show up 10 minutes later. Reminds me of the time my cell phone completely died, wouldn't power on even if I charged it, so I called Apple support. Guy asked what's wrong with my phone. I told him it won't turn on. He asks me to power it on so we could troubleshoot. I tell him it won't turn on. He sighs and tell me he won't be able to diagnose the problem if I won't cooperate and power on my phone for him. Our old coworker was telling me that there's people out there that think Alaska is an island. I laughed in disbelief, but another coworker overheard and was flabbergasted. "What? It's not. But it's always drawn off to the side with Hawaii." Point made. Another time a guy with a really thick accent walked in. Same girl was like, "Oh wow, I like your accent, where are you from?" Said guy, "Have a guess." Her response, "Have a guess? I've never heard of that place before." And walked away. She's super sweet, just slightly oblivious. I teach high school English. I was working with a small 9th grade group and found out all 4 of them thought Alaska was an island. They were not kidding. I grabbed a globe to show them. One asks, "But how recent is that map?" I laughed really hard but discovered again that it was not a joke. The time a friend told me how much he hates potatoes while eating French fries, and I literally blew his mind by telling him French fries are potatoes. When I was in high school, there were these 2 girls that constantly just blew my mind. One of them asked what does insignificance mean? And the other replied why something is significant. The first girl looked at her and went to, "Okay, I get it." One of my high schoolers thought Asia and Africa were countries and got frustrated when she was gently corrected. Her response, "Whatever, I'm not good at geometry." Revenge of the Sith had just come out. After I watched it, I went out in the lobby with the wife and threw my snack stuff away. Some lady walks by us and said loudly, "I can't believe they named the babies Luke and Leah, that's so stupid, they're just copying the old movies." My head about exploded and my wife had to SSH me. Someone in my history class argued that Mussolini was a type of pasta. I once left my cell phone at a job site. When I realized that it was missing, I went back to retrieve it. When I got back, the homeowner asked me if I was back because I got the text that he sent me telling me I left my phone. I work for Parks Canada in Yoho National Park. I have been asked the question, seriously, where do you keep the animals at night? Twice in my career. To this day I still find great joy imagining what they thought was going on each night as we collected every large animal in the parks. There was this 12-year-old kid in school that thought the best was to deal with the number of positive COVID-19 cases was to stop testing so that they'd be less positive cases. I got a bad grade in geography in high school. My teacher kept trying to push me and suggested I talk to my parents about it. I told my mom I was failing geography and she said, "How fucking stupid can you really be, Justin? How do you fail geography? It's just shapes." I'll never forget that one. Back when the Fukushima nuclear power plant disaster happened, we were discussing how the reactor had failed in a science class. 5 minutes into the conversation a girl piped up and said, "I don't see what the big deal is. Why can't we just regrow it?" She dead-ass thought a nuclear power plant was a plant. I once dated a guy in his 30s who thought it's the egg that determines the baby's biological sex. To make things worse, he even said it's the woman's fault if the baby is a girl. When I told him the fact, he got so pissed and accused me of being a slut because I knew so much about human reproduction. I'm a cop and I stopped this car. Driver was 19, had a 21-year-old passenger and an 18-pack of beer. During the stop, I asked the passenger if the beer is his and he says no. I explained that the driver is only 19 and can't have it, but he's 21 and it's okay if it's his beer as long as he doesn't furnish it to any minors. Dude swears it isn't his beer. I explained that if it's his beer, he keeps it and they drive off no problem, but if it's the driver's beer, it has to be confiscated and the driver has to be cited for minor in possession. Dude still swears it isn't his beer. By this point even the driver was trying to help me explain. After about 5 more minutes of trying to get this guy to claim possession of a completely legal case of beer, I had to throw it all away and cite the driver. I used to be a manager at a Five Guys and I had a cashier who accepted over $25 in fake money. When I counted the money at the end of the night I found plastic pennies, quarters, dimes and actual Monopoly money. I called her into the office and asked her, "How did you manage this?" "What? This money is plastic." So I mean Canadians' money is plastic, so can't we just exchange it at the bank for real money?" Needless to say, I was not a happy camper. Had an ex-co-worker who told me she was lactose intolerant. Mouth was actually gaping open on that one. I've been a chef for just over 25 years. I could probably do my own AMA about this subject. Favorites include, is chicken meat? He elaborated further by asking, is it meat or is it poultry? I needed to clean the floor so I mixed all the chemicals together to get it really clean. Evacuated the building for the afternoon, thanks to mustard gas. I don't need gloves, gloves are for pussies. Ambulance ride, I don't need goggles. Goggles are for pussies. Ambulance ride. The last two were completely different people years apart. I love cooking down to my soul, but some of the people that work in kitchens are on the far side of couchable. I posted something, asking what constitutional right is being violated by having to wear a mask, and someone replied saying the government is forcing us to wear something on our face, and fining us if we don't. So I said the government also mandates those who are visually impaired to drive with glasses. Is that a violation of their right too? I got blocked. I was once asked how it felt to come to the US as a refugee. I'm from Germany. She then looked rather surprised when I told her that Hitler has been dead for 75 years, and that Germany is one of the more liberal countries in the world these days. She full-on thought I fled Nazi Germany. I met a guy who got hit by a train. Not that bad, but a year later he went to show his daughter where and how he got hit by the train, and he got hit again. At the beginning of the pandemic, a friend freaked out to hear that there was a COVID case an hour away, meaning someone an hour's drive away had been diagnosed. She thought she should get in her car and drive the other direction to keep ahead of it, because she thought COVID, the disease, was approaching like a wave of zombies, and was an hour from reaching her. Coworker bought a low-flow shower head. He filled the bathtub using the new low-flow shower head because it would use less water. My mom's friend was adopting a baby from China. After the friend returned home with her baby, she was on the phone with my mom. The baby was crying in the background. My mom later told me the Chinese baby's cry sounded just like a regular baby. She was legit shocked. I guess she thought they cried differently since they were born in a different country. A girl I knew was complaining about her car making a weird noise. She kept bringing it to the repair shop and they kept finding that nothing was wrong with it. So she sells her car, gets another one. She complains about the same thing. Then one day she's in the car with a friend of mine who's driving. He veers out of the lane just a little bit and hits the rumble strip. That's it. That's the noise my car makes. She says, "What, this?" He purposely drives onto the rumble strip this time. Yes. She says. Guys, she sold her car because the weird noise it was making couldn't be fixed. Her nickname was Rumble Strip after that. I was helping a colleague with his graduate thesis film. My job was to animate a solar eclipse since we couldn't shoot one for real. I animated it using some real-life reference footage to make it look realistic. When I showed him, he asked why the moon was black and had no detail. I asked him if he had ever seen a solar eclipse, and he replied, "Yes, of course, but I want this one to look surreal, since it's the moon in front of the sun, it's not like a normal solar eclipse." At this point it became clear something was amiss, and after asking a few more clarifying questions it became clear. He had no idea that the large object passing in front of the sun during a solar eclipse is, in fact, the moon. I confronted him about it, and he apologized for not being great with astrology. While driving from one big city to another, I stopped in a small town to eat at a fast food chain in Texas. I order my food, get my orange number tent and sit down to wait for my order. The lady who's bringing out orders has this I give up demeanor as she's calling out numbers that guests aren't claiming. Each time this happens, she speaks to a couple tables to seemingly figure out who food is for. Then I hear her call for number 55 while holding a tray of food for one person. I was number 54 and noticed I was the only single party guest there. We make eye contact and she heads towards me. She confirms my order with me and says sorry, for some reason the computer prints one number higher. I immediately ask, well then why don't you just call out one number lower than what's printed? She freezes and I can see the gears turning in her head. I tell her thank you and she goes on her way. My 5th grade teacher told us about a classmate of theirs from college. She was really confused about why Alaska was so cold and Hawaii was so hot when they are right next to one another. He asked her what she meant by right next to each other. She thought that the maps of the continental United States, with Alaska and Hawaii pictured on the bottom left, included the geographical location of the two states. A passenger was unable to understand that different countries have different cut-off times for flights, and that he has missed his flight. Had to explain to a 30-something screaming man that Canada and USA are two different countries, and that North America is a continent, not a country. Thank you for watching. If you liked the content you viewed, please subscribe and smash that like button for more content.